It's when we can recognize the trigger comes or that reaction and say, okay, God, why did that happen? Why did I feel my body tense up? Why did the fight, flight, freeze, or fawn occur in my body?
Hello, friends. It's Lizzy, and today's episode is one of those conversations that stays with you long after the mic turns off. I sat down with Bubba Page, and we went deep into two things our world desperately needs right now: men who lead with God and families who know how to stand together in Him. We talked about finding your voice through trial, how holy practices shape you into someone God can actually use, and why fatherhood is one of the most sacred callings on earth. We also talked about something I think we don't say enough, that women and men weren't meant to do this life alone. When both of us step into our God-given roles, the way really does become easier and the burden lighter. And then we dug into fellowship, real Christian community, not just people in your same life stage, but the full interwoven body of Christ. That means the young, the old, the married, divorced, single. We need each other more than we think. This conversation will inspire you, strengthen you, and remind you what's possible when God is at the center. Bubba, welcome to the show.
Well, thanks for having me. I love being here.
Those who have been listening in know we don't have men often, and we've never had a man in a cowboy hat. So you're doing new things here on the show today. So happy you're here, and so excited about what we're talking about. We've gone back and forth as much as with any other guest of just what is really the message that needs to be shared. And so I'm super excited.
I hope it's been guided. That's how I feel. Feels like the topic's gonna be able to help a lot of people. Let's see.
It will.
Hopefully you'll love it.
So tell us a little bit about yourself.
You got it. So the name is Bubba Page. Bubba because I was a fat baby and the name stuck. Literally, it's not my real name. I've been called Bubba my entire life.
Can I ask what your given
Christian Of course,
name is?
Yeah. It's not hidden. It's not, my given name is Brant. So,
okay.
Yeah, and it's spelled Brandt,
okay.
which is somewhat rare. And but as a child, it was Bubba, and it always stuck. I served a volunteer mission for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and it said Elder Bubba Page.
No, it didn't. Your name
My
tag?
high school diploma, Bubba Page. Like everything has been Bubba.
I love it.
Here it is. Beware of what you call your children as a nickname,
Yes.
because you never know if it's going to stay forever.
I love it. But it's a unique name that people remember. So actually give him a cool name too. I'm in for that as well.
It's worked out well. So Bubba's the name. Feel free to call me Bubba. We're friends. That's how it works. I'm a dad of 8, and the kids go from twins that are 5 years old all the way up to 15. 4 boys, 4 girls. It's absolutely amazing and total chaos all at the same time, but love it. And a little on that topic, went through a divorce last year. And so this is a whole new life and figuring out the co-parenting and raising the children on your own more. It's been a fascinating world this last little bit. So I'm sure we'll be able to talk on that. I am an entrepreneur by trade. So I've built and sold multiple companies. I've invested in more. And I love investing in companies because, one, I don't have to do all of the work, but I invest and then help them as much as I can, mostly consumer product and consumer tech companies under something called Influence.vc. That's the brand, my venture firm. And then beyond investing, and then we'll get done with like the business stuff, is I run thebusinessbootcamp.com. And so I help a lot of entrepreneurs or people who want to become entrepreneurs get to that stage. So ideation to validation to customers. I've done a lot of that there too. So LinkedIn is a great place to find me for business stuff. If you want to hear about family and faith and that world, I'm on Instagram under Bubba Page.
Very cool. My husband, Dave, and he's an investor as well.
Yes, I love Dave.
And it's really fun on the investor side to like high level get to see what companies are doing. And even as a wife to be able to be like hearing about all of these big companies and like hearing their stories, but it's cool as an investor because you get to see the patterns and you get to see what's working. And I think thinking about fatherhood and parenthood, we're in the nitty gritty of the business of parenting, and that high level perspective you get as an investor, you don't really get as parents except for maybe like 50 years later, But it's It's cool to get that business perspective. And then I know you talk a ton about faith. It's cool to get that parent perspective as an investor, I think, with God, where he's like, oh, I've seen a lot of these. I've seen how they start. I've seen some fail. I've seen some come back from failure, and it's like, it's nice to have an investor partner in God in our families.
100%. Yeah. I just feel like when we do, there's so many comparables as an entrepreneur and as a father and mother.
Totally.
Just the way that we're built by God to be creators, like having the thought of building something from scratch or even investing and helping them build from scratch. There's just so much that I think from a gospel standard, biblical standard, that we can apply into from entrepreneurship into family life. I'm in the process of writing a book.
Oh, I didn't know that.
I've been waffling on like what to call it, father operating system, fatherhood and entrepreneurship, something in this world. Because I feel like, especially men, we're going to work all day for the most part, and then we come home and we're not leading a ton in the house most of the time. The spouse she's got her hands in everything and knows what to do and when to do it. So this book is focused on, hey, dads, how can we help to lead more in the home? How can we provide more guidance and structure? And so the book will be like a resource and a guide. It's not a novel, to be able to help fathers step up and be able to do more in the home. And I think we can do a better job.
I love that so much. It made me think, in a business perspective, I haven't thought about this about a home, that if you had a CEO who wasn't there the whole day, but the operator was, right?
Yeah.
And not that we're saying dads are CEOs and moms are operators, right? Like moms and dads play different roles depending on their gifts and talents and skills. But if the CEO were hardly there, or anyone in the organization all day long, and then they come in and they try to lead, and it wasn't like that before. I know you have a ranch. We talked about this offline.
Right. Yeah.
But think about how it used to be. Fathers and mothers work together on a farm or a ranch or a gathering. And so that role of a leader was very continuous throughout the day.
Yeah.
Now it's trickier. Once you go to an office, or if you're out most of the time, mother or father, and then you try to jump back in, or just kids going to school all day, right? What does that leadership look like as it changes? So I'm excited to hear what you come up with and what you're writing, and you'll have to let us know when the book is launching and maybe have you back on the show or share it here.
Absolutely.
I would love to.
Books are so hard. You're like putting your blood, sweat, and tears into something that you want to be amazing. So it's taking a little longer than I thought. Let's just put it that way.
It'll be worth the time. It's a needed topic, really needed topic. Well, tell us a little bit, before we jump in, we're going to jump into a lot of fatherhood today. I really wanted to bring you on as a guest, and I'm having more male guests moving forward, just because even for women reclaiming their voice and making their unique impact, so much of, like, it's all intertwined, right? And having men's perspective, both in the home, outside the home, the workplace, how do we work together better, is so important. But before we jump into all of that piece, tell us a little bit about how you found your voice.
Yeah.
What was your journey in gaining confidence and being online is a scary thing. I'm sure you have so many horror stories. If you've been online long enough, you have to have really thick skin. But then also in business, right? It's like, it's a real game of confidence to invest in yourself and invest in other people and not just show up as an employee. What was your journey to that confidence?
Oh, interesting. I've never been asked that question. That's fascinating. As a kid, it was funny. My older brother would ask, I'll keep it short, but he asked me to go buy his ice cream for him because he was too shy. And so I was the youngest of 4 kids, and I was totally fine doing that. So for some reason, like, talk about nature versus nurture. Part of my nature was that I was comfortable going and speaking to an adult or other kids. And maybe it was the name Bubba, I don't know, but like I'd go introduce myself to kids. And I know as a child, my mom would say, oh, who are all these friends? And if I didn't know their names, I'd just make up names. I'd be like, oh, it's like Joe and Schmo and Flo. And and just like, everyone's my friend. And so part of that, I think from nature side, is that I was born with maybe a little bit more confidence or comfort in speaking to people. And I know not everyone is born with that. And so
I was not. I've talked about this on the podcast. So shy, so painful for me to go talk to people.
And so you've had to learn that skill.
Yeah, definitely a journey. But I love those who are born with it. But it sounds like you also then had some opportunity.
Oh, for
because the
sure.
people your brother leaned on you to be that even more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And in business, I think there was something where when I came home from my 2-year volunteer mission in Brazil, where I loved the people in Brazil and got to serve them, I came home and was invited to join a startup. And so while I was at Brigham Young University at BYU, down the road here, I was invited. It wasn't my initial, idea, but I joined as a co-founder. And they looked to me to kind of lead the sales effort of the organization. And but I didn't have confidence in business. I had no mentor prior to that. I had no family member who was an entrepreneur, and so becoming an entrepreneur was brand new and scary. And so it took time for me to build that confidence of speaking to people and opening up more from a business standpoint. I wasn't even a business major. Like I was in the communications department, but all of this felt natural as I went into this. And I thought I was going to go down the MBA route and go work in corporate. But in that first experience as a student entrepreneur, I fell in love with entrepreneurship. And I knew that was my calling. Like that's where I needed to go. And so my entire career, I've just been an entrepreneur. And now being able to invest in entrepreneurs, it's helped build over time that confidence. And then I'll be honest, I also lost confidence when I had to shut down one of my companies. And so in 2016, 17, one of the businesses didn't work. And it was devastating to go through this, shutting it down. And a lot of my confidence went out the window. I had relied so much on my business success to be who I was. My reputation, my personality was connected. And that was wrong. I shouldn't have done that. I didn't realize it. But I went through depression and anxiety for the first time in my life. I didn't even know what that felt like. So it was a unique experience to go through that. And I had to have this wake up. And during that time was also where I found this almost rebirth with God. I had always been active in my church and serving others in that capacity, but it was that time frame where I felt a deeper connection with God. And I started serving more in a place of worship, the temple. I started studying more of the scriptures and like getting more involved in my own testimony and faith building opportunities. And as I went through that rebirth of time, that's where I started to find myself again, my true self, not entrepreneur Bubba only, but Bubba, son of God. And that was game changer for me. And so I started going to church on Sunday. That's been my jam, done that my whole life. But serving outside of church in specifically the temple, which is where I found so much joy, whether it's a synagogue or whatever holy place that you worship, finding time outside of the regular Sunday services has been so beneficial for me. And so I started going on a weekly basis. I just felt like I needed it. I would live close. It was logistically feasible to do. And it took me about a year before I felt like the windows of heaven open. So I don't know if I just have a thick skull. It took me that long to like feel the true blessings of it. But I went because I felt like I should. And I left after that year knowing that I needed it. I had to have it. And so I've tried to make it a practice. And even just that one thing, if I were to suggest to anyone, finding that place of worship outside of your normal Sunday service has been an absolute game changer. It's allowed me to go through trials and challenges with more strength, with more guidance, with more charity and compassion to others. Then I don't think I would have had the same if I didn't incorporate the temple in my life as frequently. And now when I don't go, if I miss a week, I feel the difference. And there's a level of protection and help against temptation and even the acknowledgement of sin and when I need to repent more. I feel like I have more clarity when I'm going to the temple more frequently. So anyway, total soapbox, but like I love it and it's changed my life for the better. And I hope I'm incorporating that into my kids' life and having them come and serve with me. Anyway, that's one of those
So
topics
beautiful.
that has been an absolute game changer.
I I know we have a lot of listeners who aren't members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. The direction I always give my guests is we don't water down our feelings to what everybody knows and feels.
Yeah.
Speak passionately about the things that have helped you the most. And we'll try to liken it to other faiths or other practices where we can. But also, I want everyone in that chair to say, if this is a practice that's helped you a lot, don't worry if everybody understands it. And I will just, for those of you who are members of our same faith, share our same faith, same religion, it's been the same for me. Like pretty much always it's been weekly for me. And my first experience going into the LDS temple, like, I don't know if I've actually ever shared this because I try to not talk to LDS so I don't ostracize anyone. But also it's like a super personal experience. But I had been dating a guy trying to decide if I was going to go on an LDS mission as well. And my emotions were the biggest roller coaster I've probably ever had in my life, which is crazy because I was 21. Like that's an early age to be so up and down. And the guy was awesome, like a total stud, but I couldn't deny this feeling like, I think a mission is for me. And we were dating for 10 months and it was just like, nothing makes sense. Finally make a decision. I'm going to go, or at least keep walking down that path. And if at some point the door closes, the door closes, but I have to walk this path. Like I know I will always look back and say, what if, because there was something there. Right. And so get a call to serve in Croatia, go to the temple for this time. Usually you go before a mission or you can go when you're younger after high school. And I step foot in the temple and there's a lot of like there's a lot of symbolism, like you're taught in symbols in the temple, right? So there wasn't some level of understanding at all, but literally I got in there and the wave that I had been riding just up and crashed and beaten down and up again and then crashed and beaten down. The wave just stilled. And I was there with my parents. I was like, I don't think I can actually leave. I don't want to step foot outside this because I have not felt this level of peace in months. And my dad just said, don't worry. Once you've come to the temple, you take a part of the temple with you.
Oh, that's amazing.
And so I left, and it was like, when that is a practice and it is consistent in my life, I keep this level of calm and peace. And like we even talked about right at the beginning, right, with investing in a company from a high level, that is what that place of worship does for me. It's like I'm always looking at my life from a 30,000 foot perspective. And the things that really rock me on a Monday, when I hit the temple on my Friday morning session, it's like, God's like, ooh, but if you look higher, I don't think you actually should be even worried about this. You need to hire someone to help with that.
Yeah.
Or here's someone who could help your child right now.
Yeah.
I just put them in your path, but you didn't recognize it. Now you're still enough in a building without a phone in a sacred space. Anyway, there was my soapbox, Bubba, for back at
it
you.
almost forces you that time. No phone, no children, no outside influences. And look, I believe God's trying to speak to us 24/7 all the time. I think he's trying to give us downloads all the time. And I know for me, I'm not able to hear it 24/7. I'm working on that. I mean, I want to receive revelation and inspiration 24/7. But I have found that, studying scriptures and reading the words of Christ, that allows for revelation for me. When I'm journaling, that allows for revelation for me clearly. For me, it's more clear. And then when I'm serving in the temple and having that place of worship, these are the places where I find so much more insight into my life that I need. And look, we're all raising kids. We're trying to become better people, better parents, mothers, fathers, husbands, wives. Like, what better way than to get it directly from God? And he wants us to hear his words. Like he's trying to speak to us. And it's up to us to see if we can listen. And I know I'm as guilty as anyone. I think of, you get on your phone, you've got emails, you've got texts, you're scrolling, whatever it is. There's so much distraction. And I think that's how the adversary works. He knows I'm not going to go and do some massive sin. The adversary is not going to get me to kill somebody. That's just probably not going to happen in my life, I hope. But can he distract me? 100%. And take me away from what God wanted me to do that in that moment? Whether it's even just a smile to the person walking by, that maybe is what they needed to feel that sunshine. Mm-hmm. Like I pray that I can be in a place to receive that inspiration every day, because I want to be an instrument in his hands. And if I can have that influence And one of the reasons I even feel like I'm online at all was kind of by accident. I didn't get online with a purpose of having a following or anything like that. That wasn't it. And so as the audience continued to grow, I felt like me sharing family time and being a father and then my faith. That's why I feel like he wants me to share and be, if I can, a light in that dark world out there. Anyway.
Amen, brother. I think yes, we all want to be led 24/7, but I think biblically and thinking of Jesus Christ's life, specifically having time to go reconnect, I think is normal. I don't think God has an expectation that 24/7, that there's not the dust of the world on us, right? Like, I think that's actually normal. If Jesus did it, it's okay. If we did it, we need it even more so, right? But to remember, whatever your religion listening in, these practices matter. If you want to keep the perspective of God, you have to take time to step away. I even had a panel on who talked about chronic stress and the issue that provides for women, especially right now, where we're meant to have cortisol spikes. We're meant to have stress in our lives in bursts, and we're meant to come down. It's the thing that, the fight or flight is good. It helps our body know when something matters and when to pay attention, when to key in on a topic, right? But if you have chronic stress all the time, your body can't handle it. You will degenerate. Your cells are going to struggle. And the psychiatrist, the board certified psychiatrist who was on, who I asked, like, so what are some things you recommend? And she said, just a good litmus test of whether or not you actually are letting that cortisol come down is if you have a time daily where you can completely disconnect and come off.
Oh, wow.
And then you need once a week, you need a longer period of really coming away from the daily stress. I was like a Sabbath, right? She's like a Sabbath. And we kind of talked about it. But again, these practices, it's not about religion.
Yeah.
These practices are God-given for a purpose. And I think you and I did not talk about the temple at all. I didn't know that this was a passion of yours, a shared passion, but it's like, this is something God gave us, and we need it more than ever because we live in the noisiest world there ever was.
Amen. I love that idea. And even something about fasting that I found. I didn't have a testimony of fasting years ago. And as I went through some harder things in my life in 2017, I started to fast more frequently. And so fasting for me is going without food or water for a 24-hour time frame. I've found that also I've done a few extended fasts of 72 hours. I do incorporate water after the first 24 hours. But I refrain from food for that 72 hours. And now there's so much research that talks about the physical health of what it can do to regenerate our bodies and allow our body to recognize, the cells that need to be cleared out and cleaned out. And so from a physical side, I found major impacts.
Isn't it cool? There's literature now.
Oh my gosh, but now there's so much to support it. So,
Totally.
Monthly fasts are something that as an LDS faith, somebody in the Mormon community, we typically do on a monthly basis. And I've found as I've done it a little bit more frequently, the benefit of physical is definitely there, but spiritually, when I do it with a purpose. So I pray to God before I fast, and I bring my purpose that I think I'm supposed to. I try to feel it. What am I needing? Whether that's, I need more guidance or direction, or I feel like I need healing, or who could I be fasting for if it's not me, my children or family members or neighbors, friends, community, or even the country I've fasted for. And in this fasting experience, I have found clearer direction and clearer guidance. And it's like that sacrifice that we're willing to do because you do get hungry. Mm-hmm. That is a part of it. I found by the third day, I wasn't that hungry anymore when I did the extended fast. And I even had energy that I didn't think I would have, which was fascinating to me how that worked. But that inspiration and revelation came clearer in those fasts. And so I challenge, if you're listening, if you're going through something difficult in your life or you need extra guidance or direction, incorporating this clearer direction from God, having a fast and challenging yourself physically and maybe spiritually, I can promise it'll make a difference It's been promised to us in the scriptures, even when, and I'll be off my tangent in just a second, even when the apostles came to Jesus and said, we cannot cast out this evil spirit. They were trying to cast out this evil spirit. They couldn't do it. And he said, some, and I'm paraphrasing, some need much fasting and prayer. In order to, these miracles, they need much fasting and prayer. And when I read that in scripture, I was like, okay, well, if I need that help, which I need it all the time, then I must need more fasting and prayer. Because if that was the guidance he gave to the apostles, why couldn't that work for me? And I now have a much stronger conviction of fasting, yes, from a physical, but even more so from a spiritual side that's made a huge impact on my life.
I love it. All of these ideas on how to find your voice and reclaim your voice. For me, so much of it is spiritual as well. Like that, fasting's another huge one in my life, but bringing out some of the other principles you said. One, sometimes we're just born with gifts. Then sometimes we're put in positions where we get a little extra practice using them.
Yeah.
And sometimes then we're given an opportunity we don't feel ready for. I love that you said yes to the entrepreneurship opportunity. You know, like you could have said no and said, well, let me get my MBA first and then I can jump into something. Instead, you just got your MBA on a business and just did that right, right in the middle of it. And then the hard things, the failure of a business teaches you a lot.
Yeah.
The tough stuff your kids go through, marriage. I mean, all of these things are meant, if we lean into them with God, to help our voice be clear. One thing that's been huge for me in all of my own journeys in different ways, right, has been then those things have helped me trust my own voice more and to start cutting out the comparison and stop looking for the horizontal validation and looking just to God. And like, I was on a panel just last weekend and I had quite a few women come up after I spoke. And it wasn't at all like a religious panel. There wasn't anything about faith in it, right? But I think I'm a little like you. I can't. I'm like, if you want to find out like why I did what I do and why I have the confidence I have, it's just God. Like I can't explain it any other way. I was a super shy little girl who just like had no business having a podcast 40 years later. But anyway, so I've just like, a matter of fact, if the answer is God, I just say it. And a bunch of women came up after like, we had been listening to the other speakers and we just kept thinking like the thing that we just are hungry for is God. And we wish that there was more God. And I'm like, in other situations, I might get canceled for that. In other panels, they might be like, well, we're never inviting that girl back. That's not what I wanted. But it's like with God and with time and with challenges in your life, you become really clear on like, this is just what I stand for. And I'm not going to be for everybody. And I'm okay with that.
And that's okay.
I only have so much time and I only have as loud a voice that I have. Let me use it where God puts me, but God is just a big part of my story. So it's what you get. Sorry, people who listen in, you know this on Lean In, or on the Lizzy Jensen Show.
You have to do it if that's how you feel, to be authentic to yourself. I found myself quite a few years ago where I wasn't being as authentic to myself, and from a psychological standpoint, it was almost like I was trying to be something for someone else. And I didn't realize that that's what was happening. And as I went down that path, thinking I was doing what was right by trying to please others, I was losing myself. And it took a wake-up call for me to be able to realize that my voice was crumbling. And I wasn't standing up for my what I believed in. And so speaking up, and I think for those who are trying to find their voice, one, it starts speaking about it. It doesn't have to be on a podcast or even online, but like start talking to your friends and family about it. And if that's too scary, then do it in writing and write it out. Having an experience of, I think for me, journaling, putting things out there that is scary to write about or to talk about, that's given me more confidence to get online and to speak about it and to be able to share my faith and my thoughts on fatherhood and parenting or marriage. And look, I don't want anyone to go through divorce. That was a hellish experience that I wouldn't wish on my worst enemy. And so to be able to give some of the things I've learned to others, I felt compelled to do it. I haven't launched this yet, but fatherhoodmovement.com is a thing for me. And I want to help more fathers recognize who they are as one, a son of God, as hopefully an incredible spouse, a husband that can be an amazing father to their children. And sometimes they get lost in their world of work and they don't realize who they truly are and what their responsibilities and roles really, really mean from a divine standpoint. And it's new to me to talk about divine masculine and divine feminine, but I do believe there have been incredible roles and responsibilities that God gave us. Heavenly Mother is just as important as Heavenly Father. And yet we don't talk about Heavenly Mother as much out of respect, and I get that. But we have these incredible roles and responsibilities and gifts that we've been given. And some of us have lost what that idea or direction is. And I've found so much peace and joy in building my own confidence back as I've stepped more into that role again. And I don't love that it took hard things for me to recognize what I was missing and stepping back into it. So I hope as I share things, and Fatherhood Movement will be part of that, to be able to help others find their way and find that confidence again too. And so I know we were going to bring up some of the things.
I know. Let's talk about it. And one of the reasons I wanted to have you on, knowing that we have more of a female-leaning audience, is, I've been married for 16 years. We have 5 kids. And it's sometimes tricky for me to know how to support fathers. Yeah. And sometimes it's ironic because we talk about God and the masculine and not God and the feminine. But I think we on earth talk a lot more about motherhood than we do about what is this view on fatherhood. And from being a very nurturing woman, when my husband comes in, it's like, but what does your role look like best? And how can I best support you being different than me? Mm-hmm. And loving that and not trying to make you parent the way I parent, because the yin yang beauty is the fact that it's different than me. 100%. And my kids need both. Our kids need both, right? So I want to talk about, one, just how can women support men better in that role? And what does fatherhood look like? What are some of the things that are unique to men in the role of parenting that women don't have to be, right? That's the beauty of it. Like, my husband can show up in that, and that takes some of the burden off parenting off of my shoulders. And then I know we have a couple other topics, but let's start there. Yeah, I mean, this is deep. This goes so deep and can sometimes be uncomfortable for some to talk about. And I'm okay to talk about it. Because it just, to me, is so important how men and women do act differently, and we are built differently. And it's a beautiful difference. And we are equal in all of the ways that God wants us to be equal in working together. But we have unique skills and we have unique gifts. And recognizing that is so valuable. And working together as a team can be beautiful. And so for those women who are alone and single, and for those men who are single, one, I feel you in the depths of my soul. I feel you because I'm there. I'm living that life right now. And so knowing that my children do have a mom, and we co-parent very well together, and we have them half the time. And so when I speak about these things, it's not that they don't have a mother I'm speaking from, and some don't have a father. So I'm going to try and be as careful as I can, because it can be hard for some to hear these topics. But and if I can insert there, please. If we're listening in to anything, this podcast or other things, to say, this is why it doesn't work for me, or this is why it was worded wrong, or we're trying to catch people in their words, you're not going to get anything out of it. Yeah. So if you're in a really defensive place and you can't listen in right now, maybe pause, go do some healing, and come back, right? Yeah. Listen in for what you can take away and what's beneficial. And these are emotional things. Marriage is a very emotional thing. Yeah. Because it's meant to refine you. So it's going to bring out the worst of you and the hardest of you and the most selfish of you. And I think that's why God ordained it, so that those types of things can come out, but in a place of love and reconciliation, right? And so I just love that you prefaced it with this. These are hard things to talk about, but listen in with the heart of, like, God, take me to the next step. I love that. My goodness. Thank you for prefacing that. Marriage is a refining fire, and it does allow us to find our insecurities. And all of us have insecurities.
I'm a fan of attachment styles. Not everyone's familiar. There's a book called Attached. Highly recommend it for anyone out there because it'll help you to discover your own insecurities and then have more compassion for your spouse's insecurities. And usually they're built from our childhood and maybe even from childhood wounding. And maybe you didn't go through big T trauma in your childhood, but maybe it's just little T trauma where you didn't feel loved or seen or heard at some point, and that lodged into your soul. And when you are in going through hard things or in marriage, sometimes you get triggered. And I know trigger is a rough word to use sometimes, but you have a reaction to something. And you don't know why you reacted to that thing until you dig deep inside and find that maybe from your childhood, you didn't feel seen or heard, or maybe you didn't feel worthy of something. And marriage usually brings this out. And if we haven't done some of our own self-reflection and become self-aware of these wounds that we may carry, then those triggers can really set people off. And usually they'll point fingers and start blaming at the other or whatnot. It's when we can recognize the trigger comes or that reaction and say, okay, God, why did that happen? Why did I feel my body tense up? Why did the fight, flight, freeze, or fawn occur in my body? And if we can really get honest with ourselves, I have found so much healing through therapy and healing retreats and books and coaching to help me find some of my insecurities and weaknesses, and to recognize what I needed to do to heal, incorporating God and Jesus as the master healer. But for some reason, I needed the psychological side component with God to find my ultimate healing. I'm a big believer in the atonement of Jesus Christ, but for some reason I needed to understand more of the psychological component to incorporate the atonement as deeply as I needed. So if you're there and you've been trying to find this healing and it hasn't occurred yet, bring God into this learning of yourself and the psychology behind that healing. I have found is a beautiful way. And I'm pro therapy. I just believe that if therapists have attachment theory expertise, and I love something called internal family systems, IFS, which talks about the little child within you that needs to find healing. And finding a therapist that has those expertise can really, really dig into the root cause and not just cover the smoke that comes from the fire, but the real fire that's deep inside that needs healing. Okay. Again, that was a topic, had to get it out there. So fathers, mothers, I believe, and I've been reading and trying to study this as much as possible. I believe that men can be gifted with leadership. Women have leadership capacities too. Masculine and feminine, we both carry both. We have masculine within us and feminine within us. I think that's how God created us. But he's created typically men to have more of a masculine role in the world and to have women more in a feminine role. Now, that doesn't mean you can't have incredible entrepreneurship skills or incredible leadership skills on both sides, or it doesn't mean that a man can't be nurturing and that only a woman is nurturing. That's not what it means. But I believe that there is more of a leadership role that a man can play to lead and guide their family. From a spiritual standpoint, I think that's really important, that a man can come in and, again, it doesn't mean that the woman can't do this. It doesn't mean that the woman is incapable of doing this. Please don't hear me in the wrong way. But if he is able to set a tone and an example in the home, and his connection with God is clearly inspired, it makes it so much easier for the family to want to follow his lead. Now, for the females who are listening, which are the majority of them, right? If your spouse or the man in your life is not leading in that regard, how can you help him get there without necessarily the nagging or the disrespecting or whatever? It's living by example. And so all of us can live and choose to live by an example of building our own relationship with God so that we have that security and that faith within us. And when we go through this process, it allows for our own internal healing. And I believe when we heal internally, because we can't change others, we can only change ourselves, it gives space. It opens up space for the other person to recognize the healing that they can have. I've been coaching this wonderful woman. She lives in the Midwest, very faithful Christian woman. She knew she needed to make some changes on herself. And she could see some of the things that her spouse needed to change. But she felt like she wanted to get into some coaching, for example. So as we took a dive in and we focused on her own healing, and we started, with physical and spiritual and emotional to just dig deep, she recognized after just a few weeks that her husband was asking, "You seem different." And why? He asked, why are things better? And she started talking, well, I'm starting to exercise more. I'm taking time with God in the morning, and I'm studying and I'm praying. And he said, well, I want to start exercising. And she was not expecting this because that was not his jam. And he's like, well, I'm going to get up early and start exercising. You do your exercise. I'll do my own exercise. I don't have to do them together with you. But he starts exercising. And then a few weeks later, he's like, wow, I'm really loving this exercise, but I'm noticing you're different with the kids. What's going on? And she says, well, I'm writing down what I want to do the next day. I feel more organized. I'm spending time with God. And so he wasn't being coached. He wasn't being inspired on his own per se, but it was through an example and then space that she was able to give him, because she wasn't pleading or nagging, but her own healing encouraged her husband's ability to start this change. Now, husbands have just as much responsibility in their own changing as we each do, right? This is an own individual. I believe salvation is an individual matter, and that it's our responsibility to get back to God. And as we start this process on our own, the hope and prayer is that the spouse or your partner will find their own way. And if they don't, this is maybe where therapy can help, is where you can have those tough conversations. If you don't feel safe doing that within your own relationship, of having a third party that can facilitate the conversations of hard topics, where it is, I feel like I'm getting closer to God and I want us to incorporate that into our relationship. And having a third party may help to facilitate, because sometimes I say we, men and women, we can get defensive. We can take things personally. I'm pointing to me because that was me. I would get defensive. I would feel attacked. I would feel like when there was criticism, that it was daggers coming into my soul. And instead of recognizing that, oh, you know what? There's a lot of truth to this criticism that's coming to me, I would think and say, well, look at what I am doing. Look at all these things. Don't you see all these other things that I have been doing? And I would get defensive. And then that would stop my spouse from wanting to share those things. That was me. I'm accountable for that. And it's sad that I didn't have more guidance and direction. And I hope when I share these things that it just gives you an insight that you can start this path before having to go through something like a divorce. And knowing that I can't change another person and she couldn't change me. It has to be an intrinsic, internal desire. And it's like exercise, and then I'll get off my soapbox for a second. It's like exercise. If you don't practice an exercise every day, your body loses it. And so I'm trying to build muscle and become stronger from a physical standpoint, because I believe it plays into my spiritual being as well. But when I go on vacation for a week, and if I don't exercise that week, I've lost way more than what I gained the week before. And I think spiritually, emotionally, all of it goes to that same thing. It's a daily practice of, just like our physical health, our spiritual health, our emotional health, our well-being is a daily practice that we need to be focusing and taking time for ourselves, not in a selfish way, but we need our own individual time to work on us and to connect with God and to do the physical things. And my belief is so strong that it will allow your partner open space to become who they truly need to become, stepping into their masculine or into their feminine. And the polarity within a relationship, magnets, that negative and positive that pull things together, I think is dynamic in a relationship. And when we can live in these divinely inspired roles and responsibilities, that magnetism will come and it will bring life back into the relationship more. And that's a prayer that I have for anyone that's listening.
So beautiful. I loved a lot of what you said and have lots of comments. I'm going to keep mine brief because I want to get to one last topic before we end. But what I love about that approach, and I love that you geared it towards women, because we're talking about fatherhood here, but you can't make your husband be a father. You can't make him step up. It doesn't work. So to say what I love about your approach is, let's take the victimhood out of it. Say, well, yeah, it would sure be nice to have a husband like that. Sure, it'd be nice if he wanted to lead. No, you're saying, what can I do to create space for that? And then one thing that I would add is I've done my own healing and been on that same journey, right? Like that is the process, I think, of coming from a natural man and a selfish being and someone who comes as a child who has all their physical needs met, or maybe not. And then realizing it's not just about me, right? And that there's some healing for me to do. Something that was really helpful for me in that process then was also to create boundaries around behaviors and say, here's my healing. I'm not going to make you do anything or step up to anything, but I can set boundaries for my own behavior. And this is how I will and won't interact. And as my husband and I have done that, and like we're both on our journey of healing, and there's some ways we just won't engage in anymore. The actual accusation. We're not going to do that anymore. It's not helping us, right? Yeah. So if we're not in a healthy, good place, we're just not going to have a discussion tonight. We're not going to go there. We're not in a healthy space to do it. I also love that then, right, what you said at the beginning, when we do that healing and when we step into those roles, there's a difference in the relationship. Now, I can lead out spiritually. I'm actually really good at it.
I have no doubt.
And I'm a great entrepreneur. Actually, I'm not, because I don't make a lot of money. I mostly do a lot of things for free. Still working on closing out the loop on that. My husband's a great entrepreneur, but I can do all those things. And my husband's actually a really great nurturer. He does a lot of those things. But for me, when my husband has stepped into those roles and when I've stepped into mine, then we have each other's back. Mm-hmm. Then it's synergistic. Like when he's really leading out in the home, even recently introducing a new practice. We have two tweens and a teen, a 13, 12, 12. You can imagine the hormones, they're all girls. Yeah. And it was just getting more and more just kind of little competition and then a little comparison and then this one mouthing off and this one mouthing off. And it's tricky as a man to say, well, how do I parent that? I'm not going to use physical force for sure. Like there are things that aren't appropriate as I discipline. And he went on a retreat with a bunch of great godly men, which again, I would say if you want to help your husband, give them some time to be around men who love God and who see God as their director and their investor in them, as a director in the home. Yeah.
Shout out to fatherhoodmovement.com.
Yes.
That's what we'll be doing.
Good. I'm so excited because we don't have very much of that. Mm-hmm. I haven't heard many men who have done things like that. Yeah. So he goes and comes back, and a couple men mentioned that their daughters do cold plunge. If there's mouthing off, if there's disrespect, it's 10 seconds in the cold plunge. So he came home, this was a couple weeks ago, and you get a warning to just say you need to cool down. If you can't cool down yourself, then you get 3 minutes and to get your swimsuit on and go down to the cold plunge. And if it takes you longer than 3 minutes, another 10 seconds is added on for every additional minute. So there's no physical force. And just last night, we had our little family meeting, and we're talking about what's gone well in the family this week and what can we still be working on, or where's there friction. And one of our daughters, who had been a bit maybe not the main instigator, but she's kind of at the height of some of those hormones, right? And she said, you know what? That cold plunging has been so helpful for me.
Wow.
I mean, that's very self-aware, but also a huge level of humility. All this to say, the fact that my husband has stepped in and stepped up more there, I've been able to nurture more.
I love it.
Because I'm not having to hold both in my hand. It's hard to be both roles,
100%.
So we are when we need to be, but what a beautiful thing to say, thank you for carrying that part of parenthood for me, honey, because now I can carry my part better and easier, and I'm not so exhausted at the end of the day, which means we also have more time for each other because we're carrying the load together. So a big amen to what you're saying. And women, don't be a victim in this. Don't hear this and say, I wish I had that kind of father in my home. Say, what can I do to heal? because then I'll be happy either way. I'll find peace either way. Okay, last part of our conversation, I want to jump in to something we talked about before offline. Yeah. And that is how can we broaden our concept of the community of Christ? I think a lot of us are really good at being in our lane. And if we're in a marriage, then we're looking for friends who are also in a marriage that looks like ours. If we're single, we're looking for single. And the older you get, the more you realize that's one, there's just not a lot of happily married couples because all of us are going through things that are hard anyway. Yeah. There's a lot of divorce. There's a lot of people that never get married. And then we realize like, I actually need lots of different perspectives in my life. If I'm single, I want some married perspective. If I'm married, I want some single. If I'm young, I want some old, and vice versa. Yeah. And I think Jesus taught us that so well. He gathered a very eclectic group around him, but we are a little more hesitant to do that. You coming on from the perspective, obviously just male and I'm female, right? But then also you're currently in the role of a single dad of kids who have a mom. What advice would you give to women to better support people coming at that from a different perspective, whether it's parenting or not even parenting?
Yeah, so I wrote down some notes because I just feel like there's a way to support single men and single women if we're going that in a Christ-like way that I think can be really beneficial to the community as a whole. Look, half of marriages don't work out. Those are the stats. And so many of the people around you have had to go through this. And so being in a single environment and knowing how my neighbors or friends have stepped up to help me is what I want to share of like in a family protected way, in a Christian way. And one of the things for me is inviting is huge. Now, I'm not going to take the responsibility off of single people. We should be able to invite others as well. So it's not just that married families should invite single, parents and their children. I'm inviting people to my own home because sometimes it's hard for people to do the inviting, and I'm taking initiative to do that.
Can I do a quick pause?
Oh, of course.
Do you have any quick tips on how to make it easier to invite people in your home? Because I think we're like, hey, if I'm going to invite people, I have to cook a full meal and like feed all the people. Well, if you have all your kids with you, you already have 8 mouths to feed and you don't have a co-parent at this point, right? Any quick tips that, okay, I'm maybe first for the single people and then let's move to how you've seen people invite you in?
For sure. So one tip, especially is to get the confidence of inviting people into your home. One, no one expects your home to be perfect. Look, we've all seen Pinterest, we've seen Instagram. None of our homes are perfect like that all the time. So just get that out of your mindset. You don't have to have a perfect kitchen, a perfect home, Inviting people is one of the greatest gestures of friendship and of fellowship that we can give people. You're inviting them into your safe space. And so me being single and having 8 children, do I need to cook an entire meal for somebody if I invite them over? Absolutely not. Will I do that sometimes? Of course. But I'm not trying to create a Pinterest perfect environment here. That's not at all. Also, most people are willing to say, hey, what can I bring? And so, hey, could you bring a side or a salad or whatever? And then I'll cook something as the main meal. That's been easy. But it can also be a game night. Just come and bring the kids over after. You can do ice cream. You don't even have to have any treat. But inviting people over to do games or to get to know you or something like that and allow kids to interact from a single guy's perspective, especially having just moved into a new location. We sold our marital home. Both of us moved into a new place. Having an invitation is one of the greatest things because we're new. We don't know the community, the church ward, whatever it is. We don't know. And so having an invitation to come, whether it's to an activity, to a park, it doesn't even have to be your own home. You can just go to the park. You can go on a walk. Hey, my family's going to walk the dogs. Do you want to come with your family? Oh my gosh, what a huge blessing to be able to get some interaction and to get to know people. A safe way for those that are married that want to incorporate or help fellowship a single individual is to do it in a group thread. I'm a big believer in that. You don't have to be individually messaging. If you would like, if it feels safer, and if that's a boundary that you've set in your marriage, then incorporate the husband and the wife. Even if, let's say, I'm a single guy and the wife is messaging me primarily because of kids' schedules and trying to incorporate a play date. It's okay to include the spouse on that. You don't have to, but if that's something that you set up as a boundary in your relationship, do it. I'm not uncomfortable with that. And you can even say, hey, I'm just going to loop in my husband so that we're all on the same page. That's like an easy phrase that is non-offensive, and it can keep the dynamic safe. Also, no late night messages. Just avoid it. Just don't respond. If somebody messages, you don't have to. I'm a big believer. I think boundaries, there's one, I brought up a book, Attached. Read that one. Next, the book Boundaries. It's beautiful to be able to help understand these boundaries within yourself and within a marriage. So incorporating a single man or a woman, I think that group text thread can be huge. If you're going to, let's say, remind your mom friends about an activity at school or costume something or whatever, if you're going to incorporate the single person, it's okay for them to hear those reminders. Now, it's not that single people are not capable of staying on top of everything. I have to. I have my kids for 7 days, and then they go to their mom for 7 days. And so during those 7 days, I am in dad mode. I'm getting them up and ready for school. We're getting them ready. We're making them food. We got all their homework assignments. We're doing all the activities, the play dates, like all the tumbling and sports schedules. That's on me. Now, I've been lucky in this current phase of life. I do have a home helper, and Oakley is amazing. Thank you, Oakley, if you listen. And that has been so beneficial. And I know most people don't have that. And that has been a financial blessing of being able to have somebody that helps me organize, or if I have to be in 3 places at one, I have a driver. You don't have to have somebody from 9 to 5. Even if you have somebody that helps here and there, if you're a single person, it can be super helpful. If you're married and want to know how to help the single person, offering to carpool with those kids can be hugely valuable, because I do have to be in 3 or 4 places at once sometimes. Yep. And so having someone say, hey, I'm taking the child to this activity or this, would your child like to ride with us? Oh my gosh, yes, thank you. I didn't know how I was going to pull it off tonight. Can be a massive blessing. And
you mentioned something. Don't worry too much if you don't know if it's their week or their weekend or whatever.
Yeah.
Like, and I'm laughing because I'm like, that has actually stopped me a lot with my single parenting friends. I'm like, oh, it's going to feel so insensitive that I can't remember when they have their kids. Yeah. And I was like, of course, just throw it out.
It's not insensitive to us.
Hey, I don't know if you have, and it could also be like for a dinner. I don't know if you have your kids or not, but do you want to come?
Yeah.
And if you have your kids, we'd love to have them too. Take the pressure off yourself to perfectly remember their schedule. No. They're not going to be offended. They're going to love the invite no matter what.
100%. And what I think is so valuable is the invitation itself is so amazing. Whether or not I'm in town or not, like just being invited is so special. Like everyone wants to be invited to something. And I take that responsibility on myself as a single person to invite others. So I'm not trying to play the victim. Like we both, all married singles, we need to be inviting each other and to be incorporating. This is what fellowshipping is. This is what community really is. When I moved into this new community, I had a neighbor come and they brought cookies, and that was like the nicest thing ever. My kids loved them. And so I created a relationship. I was able to get a phone number in case of emergencies or something that we could help each other. And then I had a Sunday without my kids, and I walked around and knocked on all the doors. And I know not everybody's willing to do this, but this is something that helped me. I went and knocked on all the doors, and I just said, hi, I'm Bubba. I just moved in, and I have 8 children. They're not with me today because I have shared custody. But I would love to share my number with you. So in case my children are doing something that you don't want, please don't call the cops. Just talk to me first. I've got good kids, but just in case, it made it lighthearted. We were able to become friends. Those awkward like neighbors that you've only waved to for the decade that you've lived there. No, you can actually build a relationship and talk to them. And so I know not everyone feels comfortable knocking on a door, but man, that one act alone helped me to be connected with every person on that street more than they were connected to each other after 5 or 6 years of living there. And so now the community has asked me to like be the one to connect the rest of the community or the ward to all the people on the street, because I'm the one that has that connection. Mm-hmm. So when you move somewhere new, don't wait for people to come to you. You can be the one to go out and meet your neighbors. Don't play that victim of, I just moved in, so somebody's got to invite me to their house. No, even if you have boxes everywhere, invite them in. And they'll understand you're just moving. Home's not going to be perfect. It doesn't matter. I'm just a big believer in invitations and inclusion that breeds belonging. And it's not just in an emergency situation, which we did in a previous home. There was flooding, and the neighbors were flooding in their homes. We luckily had created this like group text on the app GroupMe, and somebody messaged, my basement is flooding. Well, I had 5 sump pumps that I needed from my cabin property, and I was able to bring them over there in just a few minutes, help their property not get damaged more. But if we hadn't built this community, they would have been suffering, and they would have had to wait for a professional company to come hours later. Anyway, I'm passionate about this inclusion, and whether you're divorced or single or never been married or married, like including others is one of the best things that we can do and be Christ-like. Is just being inclusive and knowing a little bit more about them than just the surface level can be so valuable in being helpful and kind.
I had a thought this weekend as we're wrapping up that, again, back speaking at this motherhood conference, that I think community is one of the rewards for discipleship and one of the gifts God gives us for all those things that we do to try to heal and try to bring Jesus into our life. I think the gift God then offers is you belong to a beautiful community now. And I think most of the time, the disciples I know, the followers of Jesus that I know, that's the thing they spend the least time doing. They're spending so much time healing and trying and worshiping and serving sometimes. And then the actual beauty and the fruit that like God's like, now eat. Like the fruit is you get to be in community with all these amazing people who are also trying to heal. But we're like, we're just too busy for that part.
Yeah.
Or I'm just too tired now. And so if you find yourself in that situation, I love that we're broadening this topic from whatever stage of life you're in. The good stuff is in the community.
Yeah.
So if your discipleship is taking place because you have too many check boxes or you're too afraid or you're too perfectionist or whatever, from the actual joy of following Jesus, you're in for a real treat.
Oh, amen.
The best stuff is ahead.
One thing I love to do with my kids, especially on Sundays, because it's one of those special days. We try to make Sunday a Sabbath, a day of rest, a day that's different than other days. And so one of those things we do is, one, we play music together. Love playing music together. But 2, we usually make a treat. And, I'm not some special baker, but I'm learning. I'm increasing my skills in baking. But we'll double or triple the batch. And then we'll take it to somebody. And and with my kids. So we all are walking or going over to this neighbor's house with this plate of whatever it is. And we just are on the doorstep. It almost always encourages some kind of a conversation. Sometimes they invite us in, other times they don't, and that's okay. And but it's just a little something that we can do. For me, we try to do it as frequently and we've just chosen Sunday because it's a little bit more of a calm day with less sports and work and whatnot. And just that little simple act has again spread more of a community vibe. And people have done the same for us. They've brought us loaves of bread, like homemade. Oh my gosh, it's like the best ever. And in any community, it doesn't matter religion, doesn't matter, your life situation, single, married, divorced, it doesn't matter. These little pieces can really just bring people together in a Christ-like way. And I think as a disciple of Christ, our duty is to treat others with kindness and with love. And we need to, as much as, we love God and we love our neighbors, we need to love ourselves. So doing that internal healing, knowing that God is our core focal point, but we can also spread that love with others. And having been married for almost 18 years and now being divorced and single for a year, I've now seen these 2 perspectives, and I've seen how people feel uncomfortable with me being a divorced man and communicating or texting or adding. And I get it, and there's no judgment. And nor do I want to ruffle anybody's feathers. So just from some safety elements, as a reminder, include in group texts. Invite the family as a whole. Do it when the spouse is there. Knowing that communication can be logistical and kid-friendly, not emotional. there shouldn't be, from a married perspective, coming to me and me seeking for emotional support. I shouldn't do that with a married couple. That's not my job. My job is to find a group of men that I can. And Fatherhood Movement is one of the reasons I even created that as a Christ-centered group for men, and potentially even a women's group that has been requested. But keep it safe. It can be Christ-like. It can be friendly, not flirtatious, safe. I think that's where people get hung up on a little bit of helping single people, is they're worried about that blurring of the lines. And you can keep it above bar. It can be friendly and kind and Christ-like, and doing it in the right way.
And if that's not a muscle that you practice often, again, if you're like, oh, I'm only comfortable with men when they're in a happy marriage, like there's a lot of people you're not able to reach. I think as women, we need good men in our lives, and men need good women in their lives. And if you don't know how to do that well, figure out how you can do it, because we need to support each other. We need that. I think about the men in our own congregation that have supported me through things in a totally appropriate way, right? We need that. So I'm really thinking of the woman listening in. If this is you, who you really don't know your neighbors, who you feel really uncomfortable, let this be a season of growth for you to think, how can my life be expanded and my joy be expanded and my community and fellowship be expanded? And what do I need to do to grow to be able to enjoy that and bless more people? There's a beautiful world out there for you. And I know they're going to find more of that over on your Instagram.
That's right.
Those who join the Fatherhood movement is going to be so powerful. I'm so excited you're doing that work, and it is just such a needed work. So thank you for what you've taught here today, and thank you for what you're going to continue to teach, because this is needed in our world today in a major way.
Thank you so much.
If this conversation stirred something in you, make sure you're subscribed on YouTube. That's where all the full-length episodes live, and where you can join us for even richer conversations. Just search up The Lizzy Jensen Show on YouTube and hit subscribe so you never miss an episode. I'll see you next week.